There was the genre of movies back in the 70s called the destruction genre or the disaster genre, where we would have things like Towering Inferno or the Poseidon Adventure, and you'd get all kinds of famous movie stars and you'd throw them in peril. And that's what's happening to the Fast and the Furious saga or the Fast Saga. Of course, Fast X or Fast 10 is all about the core family, Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez and everybody that's been along for the ride, and people that we thought have died have come back. And the movie really is kind of a recap-a-loozа at the beginning, where everybody is discussed. We've got images of Paul Walker up on the wall, of course. We've got lots of solemn moments. We have great-grandmothers. We have sequences where people are having a big family barbecue and enjoying the sunset, and all of that is lovely. And then, of course, the action jumps into frame, and we've got all kinds of incredible explosions and lots of really crazy sequences. Brie Larson pops into the movie. Ritchson is in the movie. Lots of other famous actors that have appeared in the Fast franchise before. Charlize Theron. And I won't get into spoiling anything there too much, but suffice to say that there are a lot of cameos and a lot of sequences to kind of drum up the ticket price and the value. And obviously this is such a marquee franchise for Universal, but what we get with the core movie is tons and tons of money on screen, these huge elaborate action sequences and stunt sequences, lots of cars tumbling, and so much freaking chaos as we're watching all of this stuff. And it's really beautiful. I have to say that it's really ridiculously fun watching these unbelievably well choreographed and scrutinized and, of course, CG enhanced visuals and all of the chaos and all of the carnage that happens. And it's juxtaposed with sort of intimate moments with family members and stuff like that. That's what Vin Diesel has been all about all the way along. You know, it's about the family. And so I think that this movie is a successful enterprise, especially for fans of the franchise and people that are along emotionally for the ride with all of this stuff. I am not so much, along for the ride with this franchise. I've seen every one of the movies, but I don't go to them to kind of pick up the plot or to kind of feel empathy for the characters or to get emotionally invested in all of that stuff. There are moments where I do, and of course the death of Paul Walker has cast a great shadow over this franchise that's hard to grapple with. I think they've done some really nice stuff to kind of honor him, but it really changes the messaging and the way that these movies all come together. Everybody is there except for Paul Walker, and he's constantly referenced. As we move on, there'll be more and more kind of homages to the man as well. And so he's definitely an element in the imagery of this movie. But I think what you really get in terms of dollars is this ridiculous over-the-top stunt sequence after stunt sequence. There's a fantastic opening kind of salvo of elaborate stunts in Rome, where Jason Momoa, who is the bad guy in this movie, plots this huge attack on Rome and the Vatican. So everybody is chasing this giant metal ball bomb through the streets of Rome, and it catches fire, so it looks like a meteor on ground level just hurtling through the streets of Rome, and it's very effective. And of course, you can tell that there are visual effects applied, and it's incredibly noisy and crazy, but they do a good job of amping up the action and choreographing all the cars coming into frame. And that's the funny thing about the Fast franchise, is that the vehicles become an extension of the people, and you can't really solve a dilemma. I mean, they've got elaborate gunfights and fistfights and all kinds of action sequences, but it all boils down to when do they jump into the cars and how do they use the cars to survive the impending doom. And there's some really cool sequences where Vin Diesel is driving the car that he is in, this muscle car. He's always in muscle cars. The series also feels like a kind of a last gasp celebration of the gas guzzlers out there as the world is moving faster and faster to electric vehicles. This is the high rev, super loud, super noisy muscle cars. And they do a good job kind of honoring all that. But Vin Diesel in his muscle car does some stuff where he's actually knocking things out of the way to save people from getting crushed by buildings and other debris and stuff, which is really funny. I mean, he's like a superhero in his car, as we've seen in any previous ones. Michelle Rodriguez and Charlize Theron have a pretty fantastic choreographic fight sequence in there. They're both unbelievable physical fighters, and they just have a good time throwing themselves around and getting into it, and I really enjoyed that sequence. And they're actually quite cool. I was not a fan of Brie Larson in this movie. I thought she was unbelievably stiff and very wooden. She's not done any favors by having to kind of be a part of this exposition platform. She has this dialogue sequence with Alan Ritchson, and they're both basically recapping everything, and they've got screens all around them, and it's just so stilted and stiff, and it looks so fake as well. It looks like, I hate to throw this at it, but it looks like a cut sequence from a video game from, 15 years ago. So it's not all top tier, beautiful, never seen anything like it before work in this movie. And certainly if you've seen fast films in the past, you are going to recognize a lot of familiar sequences, lots of cars blowing up in drag races and stuff like that. But Momoa is a lot of fun. He's really enjoyable to watch. When the action escalates and gets super big and super crazy, like helicopters getting hooked by cables and things like that. And there's also a lot of showpieces throwing back to some of the crazier stunts. Remember that? I don't even know which one it was, but they stole a vault and they're driving through the streets and this giant vault is just crashing all over the place, bashing through buildings and cars and stuff. Well, they almost throw the entirety of that sequence back into this movie, but it was so cool. And so I don't know if this is my favorite Fast film. It certainly ends with some cliffhangers and some reveals to get us in the seats for the sequel. And Vin Diesel has said that the intention is not to just make this a two-parter, but to talk about this as potentially a three-parter. So this Fast franchise is going to go on and on and on. And honestly, I don't know what Universal does when they come to any kind of a conclusion with this movie, because it's so big and the world loves it, and the explosions, he's driving off of a dam, for Christ's sake. I don't know where, they've already gone to space, so I don't know where else they could go with all of this, but I don't know what Universal's gonna do, because this has just been a money machine, this franchise. And I don't think people that love it are gonna be bummed out to see this new one. I don't think it's gonna set any records in terms of being a favorite, but I think it was a solid entry. I definitely had a smile on my face for big chunks of the movie. I did start to feel a little bit sleepy when things would slow down and they were trying to squeeze emotion into it, and it all felt a little bit forced. I wanted more out of Brie Larson as well, and I hate to just single her out, but it was shocking how flat that character and that performance was, even if it's tied to everything. Oh, and that's one other thing too, is they cannot introduce any character in this series without there being some kind of relation, and that relation to another cast member is always prefaced in every bit of conversation, because it's so hard to keep up with who is connected to who and who's the brother or the sister or the cousin. It's ridiculous, but it's also ridiculously entertaining. I'm gonna give Fast X a 7 out of 10.